Alright guys and gals, welcome to the video. I hope you enjoyed that intro. In this video I'm going to be offering 5 tips on filming and editing video on your smartphone. This is by no means a comprehensive video, and I am not a professional or an expert by any means. As you can see by my channel, my videos are not that great, but even these not so great videos take a little bit of effort. And I've learned some things along the way I'd like to share with you. So let's get into it. Alright, so my number one tip in this guide is to use the tools that you have. I think sometimes when you want to get started in something, you look to those who are doing it best. Like if you want to play guitar, you see people playing on these high-end Fenders or Gibson guitars, and you don't necessarily need to start off, there. Just use the phone that you have, or if you have a digital camera laying around, you can use that just to get a feel for it. I think sometimes hopping into, even if you have the resources to get like a MacBook Pro and some high-end software or a high-end camera, it's kind of foolish because it's like wanting to learn how to drive and hopping into a Ferrari. Just because you can afford it doesn't mean that you're going to get the most out of it. The learning curve is going to be a lot harder, and it could be much more frustrating trying to learn about that and kind of get a grip for that. Now, some people, like if you're wanting to make this a full-time job and you have the resources, dive in. But for me, I'm just making little videos for family and, just for my memories. And so, you can start off with a late model, iPhone or Android. Most of those are going to work well. I try to stick to major brands like LG, Apple, Samsung, and there's several others out there. I will say that LG, as far as Android, is probably the best value. I mean, those things depreciate so fast, and they have like late model specs and processors that you can get on the cheap. Like, for instance, right now, the G7 came out in 2018, and you can get it on eBay for like under $150, and it's in pristine condition. So I probably wouldn't get anything prior to 2017. I think a Galaxy S7, could work, that kind of thing. And older phones can work. If that's what you're starting with, that's what you're starting with. But I don't feel like you have to go out and buy the latest and greatest to get started. All right, and so I forgot to mention, I personally started off with the iPhone 7 Plus. I intentionally bought that because I knew it could take, pretty good video. Then I moved to an iPhone 8 Plus, and now I have an LG V40 that I've been filming with. And one thing I will say is that out of the gate, probably the iPhone is just the most straightforward to use. I'm not saying iPhones are better than Android. I like them equally, but with a lot of Android phones, like you get a video editor with them, but it doesn't really do anything. Like the one on this LG, I don't even think it has transitions on it. So with the iPhone, if you have an old iPhone 7 or 8 laying around, I would pick that up and start using that. It has a program called iMovie on it. And that program is cool because it's pretty simple and basic. You're not going to do a ton with it, but it does have transitions and it operates pretty smoothly on the phone. And so there's not a really high learning curve. And once you max that out, you can kind of move on to other things. If you have an Android, start there. Start with the software on that phone. One of the drawbacks about Android is that you have, free video editors on there, or ones that they recommend. Like on my phone, they had KineMaster or KineMaster, however you want to call it, kind of pre-installed, but it left a watermark. So unless you had a subscription to this program, which I do now, it's $23 a year, which is not very much at all, you can't really use a ton of the effects and things like that, and it does leave a watermark. Whereas on the iPhone, iMovie doesn't leave any watermarks, and it's pretty simple to use. So I'll just throw that additional information out there. All right, and point number 2 is that any form of editing and video taking is going to take time and effort. Even the little crappy videos that I put out take sometimes a lot of time and effort. And some of that's learning curve, some of that's mistakes, and some of that is, the limitations of phone. So when you're operating on such a small screen, even if you have a larger phone like the Pixel XL, Pixel 4 XL, or like an iPhone Pro Max, or, a Note, it's still a really small screen, and you're having to pinch and drag and do all these things. And it can be easier, just for a just from a moving around and organizing standpoint on a PC, because you can organize folders, drag and drop a little easier, even though the software is more complex. So you want to keep that in mind. And then, just give it time, just give it a little time. I think it's definitely worth it, especially when you think about taking videos that preserve memories and that, your family and friends can share, and those things can be priceless. For instance, I went on a cruise with my family. Me and my two younger brothers are all adults, and we went on a cruise together with my family out of Miami, and I made a little video about our family vacation together, and I'm going to put it on DVD or Blu-ray and send it to them, and that's going to be priceless. My brothers can have that and share it with their kids, and my family, my parents who are empty nesters, can have a little something to remember their sons by, because none of us live at the house, and I actually live over 1,000 miles away. So, it's worth it, I guess is what I'm saying. All right, and point number 3 is do not believe those videos that you see in commercials where they claim that everything was shot on a specific phone that has just come out. While that may be true, you want to keep several things in mind. And I kind of got a glimpse of the behind the scenes when I was watching a Casey Neistat video when he was working with Samsung. These guys had multiple phones that they were using at the same time to get different angles. So you have multiple phones. You have a professional crew that knows how to operate lighting and use equipment and all these kinds of things that are light years ahead of yourself. Then they're using professional equipment. Even though they're using phones, at one point in one of his videos, they were sliding around on this cart that you see, directors and videographers or whoever, camera people using in like professional studios. And their gimbals that they had were, high end and all this stuff. And so even a little phone gimbal for my phone or for any phone, like a decent one's like $100, and they were using things that were way beyond that. And then lastly, they are editing on high-end equipment and high-end machines that can render some beautiful footage and make corrections that you honestly wouldn't believe. And so your footage is not ever going to get to that point. It may look decent for you and for your family and things, and that's great, but it's not going to get to that point. So don't believe the hype on that. All right, and point number 4 is plan ahead. So a lot of times when you think about filming things, you kind of, think about being spontaneous, and that's kind of the plus side of having a phone that can take video. And a lot of times you will find that if your kid's playing their first soccer game, they hit their first goal, they're learning how to swim, those kinds of things are going to be spontaneous. You're going to take little clips and send them out. But for instance, when my family went on that cruise, I had to kind of be intentional about what I was doing, just to make sure, I can make a better video. I could have made a decent video without it, but I can make a better video. And part of that was things like, I had to empty the storage on my phone. So I had an iPhone, the 8 Plus, and I actually had a 256 gigabyte phone. So I didn't have to do too much on that. But I got that shortly before the cruise. Before that, I had 128 gigs, and I'm one of those people that never deleted the footage off my phone. I would make multiple videos. So allow memory on your phone, clear out memory on your phone. Maybe get if your phone takes it, a micro SD card so that you can take more footage. You can take that card out, put in another one, that kind of thing. Maybe have a charger with you, that kind of thing. And then also, you want to stop and pop. So one of the biggest mistakes that I make when I'm going out to film videos, and I still do this, is I'm walking around, I see a park that I really like, I don't know my way around, so I just pull out my phone and I'm waving it all around and walking all around, and that's kind of the beauty of it. You're kind of experiencing that. It's enjoyable, but a lot of times that throws the footage off. As you can see in a lot of my videos, when I'm panning and moving around, everything's blurry. You can't even see a thing. And I'm filming at 1080p and it looks like 480. So when you go somewhere, you want to kind of, first of all, plan, make a progression of where you want to go and film in order, because it's hard to go back on a phone and kind of pinch and figure out which film came or which clip came before the other clip, because on your phone, you can't really organize photos when you're importing them from, a video editing software or app. So that's really important. And then, like I said, you want to stop and pop. So if you're somewhere and you want to film something, stop walking, stop moving your hands around, and just hold the phone and film what you're doing, and then, kind of give narration all over that. And if you can't narrate and, stop and hold your phone and stop moving, then don't say anything and do a voiceover. But if you can, just stop and film the area unless you need to kind of follow something, because honestly, these phones do not do well with autofocus. Even if you're in 60 frames per second or 30 frames per second, it's not going to matter. The footage is going to be jumpy and jittery. And then I've started to use Google Photos to stabilize my footage, but what I've noticed is it takes away from the footage. So the better the initial capture you can get, the better your results will be when you're editing and exporting. So if you can at all, just stop moving, or just do one or the other. Don't walk and move your hand at the same time. Maybe move the phone slowly when you're panning or looking around, or kind of walk slowly. And if you're on uneven ground, turn on your phone stabilizer. A lot of phones have optical image stabilization, which you'll see. But the problem with that is it keeps the video in focus, but then the video is jumpy. It's basically like your camera's on a trampoline, so it's bouncing around everywhere, and the footage looks good. It's sharp, but it looks bad at the same time because it's jittery and jumping around, and you can see some of that in some of my videos. So those are, just some things that I like to point out with regards to planning. Hopefully those are helpful for you. All right, and tip number 5 is just to have fun. Just make this an enjoyable thing, filming people you love, places you love, and, it won't be a chore. So anyway, I'm going to go ahead and wrap things up here. I hope you enjoyed the video, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.